TGC Requiem. We're here with, this is a league. For whatever reason, my recording software was having issues, and so we're going to actually just skim through the replays of this, and I'll try and see if I can't figure out what's going on with my recording software. So, let's see here. So I ended up keeping this opening hand of Delta, all these, just because they had early interaction. Snapcaster, Grishoalbrand does give us something to pitch if we get one of our enablers. Opponent plays Temple of Malice, and at the point he plays a Temple of Malice, I basically make the determination my opponent is on Grishoalbrand, which is probably not great news for us. Since it is a combo deck, we were both playing Goryo's Vengeance. Now, if he is on Goryo's Vengeance, or Grishoalbrand, he's basically playing a faster version of kind of what we're doing, a combo deck. You know, we're more interactive and still have kind of a similar, but we don't have like we don't have the ability to just go off at instant speed and kill our opponent on turn 2. So I get really nervous when I see the Simian Spirit Guide into this. But in the end, he ends up just chaining a Manamorphose into a Sleight of Hand, into a Sleight of Hand, bolt him, play our land with the intent. So he Night Whispers himself. At this point we snap into a bolt. And then on our turn we attack him, draw into another Grishoalbrand, which is not great, except for the fact that we do know we can pitch Grishoalbrand at end step. But at his end step, when we snapped in the Snapcaster, he had to discard the hand size, in which case he discarded the Grishoalbrand. So instead of just pitching Grishoalbrand, what we end up doing is just going straight to attacks on the assumption he's going to reanimate Grishoalbrand. Not that he even has that ability. My assumption here is he's not going to do that, but his next turn he will. So instead of using our Lighthouse, the plan here is to hold up the Murderous Cut mana for opponent's turn, getting him down to 8 mana. If he triggers the 7 life, the assumption would be he throws him down, goes to attack to try and gain the life, then draw cards. We try and kill it before it does damage, and then if he wants to draw his cards, he essentially just dies. Well, he just passed. Oh, I apologize, this is really early. So he just passed. So we go to attacks. Opponent kind of sits there for a while thinking. And then eventually he casts Nourishing Shoal, exiling a World Spineworm. And what he does on top of that is he ends up splicing Goryo's Vengeance onto the Nourishing Shoal. So not only does he gain 11 life, he gets to cast his Grishoalbrand, at which point we Murderous Cut. He draws 7 in response. We get him back down to 10. He then casts Goryo's Vengeance, attacks, gains 7, draws 7, and ends up just passing the turn. Doesn't get it. Pitches a Grishoalbrand and a bunch of other stuff. So we go to attack again. I'm pretty sure he, in the same token, uses Goryo's Vengeance to reanimate Grishoalbrand again. Blocks, draw 7. I lightning bolt him. And then I'm pretty sure this is where he just, yeah, Desperate Rituals into Through the Breach into World Spine Worm, and then attacks for, or not concede because he could attack for 15. So that's how we end up doing game 1. That puts us down to 0-1 in the match, and then we move on to game 2. So sorry. Looking at the opening hand. So we keep this. We have access to Blood Moon, which going into the match I think is a good choice. He has a lot of dual lands, and I'm thinking he needs the ability to cast Goryo's Vengeance. I was thinking about the sleight of hand that he's trying to cast. Wasn't thinking about the fact that Manamorphose is red, so even if we jam Blood Moon, Manamorphose gives him the ability to generate what other colors he needs. Dispel is good to counter Goryo's Vengeance. Pestermite can buy us some time, and it's also half the combo. Jace is a great enabler in the deck. So we end up keeping this. The opponent plays a Relic of Progenitus, which kind of caught me off guard a little bit because I never really showed all the combo that I'm doing, but obviously it also makes sense. He would want the Relic to kind of turn off Snapcaster Mage. Throw Jace down. And then we kind of just have this back and forth for a little bit here where I use Jace to pitch discard. He uses Relic to keep my graveyard clear. So long as I have counter magic up, I'm willing to flash in an Exarch at end step. Pitch another Exarch here. I think I might have been a little hesitant to go for the first one since I think he had. Yeah, I think actually I'm waiting for him to blink. Then having the Goryo's Vengeance is good. Not sure why. Oh, okay, so I did it to filter through. Try to get another land. This allowed me to leave up mana for Snap Dispel. So then there's the key point of the game. He actually busts out the Relic to draw into a card, and now he makes a play for Through the Breach, which we are able to dispel. And then we end up drawing into we end up drawing into a Kiki here. So we're using the Minamo to untap Jace and filter that way instead of the Lighthouse. Yeah, so then we end up drawing into a Faithless Looting, discard Kiki, we Goryo's Vengeance Kiki for the combo. while still having mana up for Remand or Snap Dispel. And that's how we win game 2. So it's possible I could have made a move on some of this earlier, but I kind of wanted to be in a position. I do remember not wanting to throw Exarch out too early in case he had some sort of removal. Because you usually don't want to like lead that too far in advance at Kiki. Plus, I had already pitched and had 2 of the combo pieces, Exarch and Pestermite, exiled from the Relic of Progenitus. And I wanted to make sure I had the ability to hold up mana to protect myself, because they can go off at instant speed. I don't know how well they can enable their graveyard at instant speed. But again, I know through the breach is an instant, and so that's another way for them to kind of get the process started. Anyway, that was game 2, so at that point it is 1-1. On to game 3. Alright, so this hand is pretty great. We have Faithless Looting and Grishoalbrand, so we can turn 1 Faithless Looting, get Grishoalbrand into the graveyard, turn 2 Goryo's Vengeance, and then typically what you're trying to do with Grishoalbrand when you get this early play is you attack, gain your life, draw a bunch of cards, ideally keeping a Goryo's Vengeance in your hand with an Exarch, and then having a Kiki in the graveyard, and then that way you can just end step of your opponent's turn, slam Exarch, or Pestermite, and then untap into Goryo's Vengeance with either counter magic backup, or the flip side is you can actually turn 4, just play your Exarch, untap one of your lands, and then cast Goryo's Vengeance with the 2 lands you have upright. One worry I had about this hand was that it potentially, it has no interaction, so if he goes off early, he's on the play, and if he has a turn 2 win, we don't have the ability to stop that. And so I think I actually even just play here to the fact that I have counter magic. So I'm pretty sure I just hold up mana and don't go for the Faithless Looting. I could be wrong. I can't quite remember. No, I do. I just go for it. That's right. If you don't have it, just go for it. Maybe he doesn't have it. Anyway, so, okay. So he ends up playing, I should note, when I pitched that, I had an extra Grishoalbrand. I kept that in hand because I had the other Faithless Looting. And it turns out to be a good choice because he has the Relic, which creates an issue. If we make the play for Goryo's Vengeance here, he has a mana up, he can sacrifice and go for it. So we can't play the Goryo's Vengeance. So now we just hold up mana, hopefully representing that we have a counter spell. He makes a play on sleight of hand, puts a land down tapped, and passes. Alright, so there I actually make the play on Goryo's Vengeance for Grishoalbrand just to force him to crack his Relic, because I'm like, well, I've got a Faithless Looting, I've got a Grishoalbrand, I've got an Exarch, I just want him to not hold that over my head all game. So we make the play just to get him to crack it, and he does. And so at this point, we're kind of lucky in the regards that he hasn't gone off or attempted to go off. Maybe this is just how the deck plays post board. Maybe he's more focused on Through the Breach and less on trying to pitch into a Goryo's Vengeance. I really don't play against this deck because it's a really small percentage of the meta, but I also know it fizzles a lot and is inconsistent, and so this could just be some of its inconsistency as well. But scares the heck out of me here, knowing he could just Faithless Looting into Goryo's Vengeance and probably beat me while I'm tapped out. But I don't have any way to interact with that, so in this case I'm just kind of making a move. So Faithless Looting, pitch a Grishoalbrand, and I think a Snapcaster. Then we Goryo's Vengeance for the Grishoalbrand. Attack, putting him down to 10. And at that point, I draw 7. And I don't see everything I want to see at this point. Really, ideally, we want a Kiki in the graveyard, but we don't have it, or a Kiki in the graveyard or in hand, right? Since we have the Exarch and the Goryo's Vengeance, but we don't see one. So I think what I do here is play the Thought Scour before I draw anything else. We get a Kiki in the graveyard, which is great because part of the concern here is if we draw 7 more, put our life down to 7, which opens us up to just a straight Goryo's Vengeance with Grishoalbrand attack, or a Through the Breach Grishoalbrand attack, where we don't have any protection against that. And so by getting the Kiki into the graveyard here, we're comfortable with the hand that we have, and so we can discard the hand size at this point, although, right. Opponent doesn't do anything. So we make a play for it. Maybe a little aggressive, but again, we still don't have any real interaction and combo out. Now, I will note at this point, often players will stop here and just concede the game. And in this case, he's making me combo out. And I can only assume this is because of the limited clock I have remaining. I just want to say that is kind of a faux pas. In paper, I could just say create 48 Exarchs and attack, you know. And I understand he has the potential to block one and Grishoalbrand it, or essentially maybe pitch and reanimate a Grishoalbrand, which means he's gonna block up to 2 damage if he blocks the Kiki, and he's going to gain 7 life, which means really I have to do 19 damage. It's also possible with 7 cards in hand he could have up to 2 or 3 combos in hand. This is super unlikely, but he could have Nourishing Shoal and World Spine Worm up to the amount of gaining 33 extra life, which is really the worst case scenario in terms of creating Exarch. So I'm kind of just start creating tokens, thinking, well, he's probably just trying to do that. He's probably hoping I only make 10 tokens and attack. And so I just keep making tokens with the intent of getting up to 40 tokens. Which again, I think this is kind of a faux pas. The chess clock makes players, and the fact that it's a competitive and there are prize payouts, some people are willing to take an edge that really shouldn't be there. They're really just, I put this back on MTGO. MTGO needs to build a way to display a loop and then say repeat this loop X times. But we end up getting there. He ends up conceding once we've exceeded what he has, and at this point, that's how we win the first match.